right, buddy. Fire away.
All right, welcome inside the Sports Lodge for another UFC edition. I'm here with my good friend Jordan Grenke, and Jordan, we've got the final the final Fight Island UFC event, and a couple big fights on the card here. We're going to start right off from the top, but before we get into it, it's been a little bit since we talked.
Yep.
What have you thought of the last couple cards, specifically the flyweight Benavidez?
Man, you know, I love Joe Benavidez. He's one of those guys that's been around for a long time. The Demetrius Johnson, Joe Benavidez, the first time they fought was in Toronto, and the video I sent you a couple days ago of me and Bisbing, Joe Benavidez was a guy I actually talked to off camera more than anyone else, and one of the nicest human beings in the world. He's so well respected. It sucks to see him go out like that. I mean, it's his fourth title shot. He was aware too that it might be his last, and I just think he got worked. I mean, there's a skill difference there. There was an approach. I would have liked to have seen him done a lot more head movement and feints. This is again the armchair expert, but I feel like he went after it. Did the best he could. It sucks to see a guy go out like that, but I don't think it does anything to take away from his overall greatness and his legacy as far as what he did in the sport.
Yeah, no, it was difficult to see him go out like that because everyone wanted to see him finally capture the elusive belt that he was never able to, right? And I mean, understand that being behind Demetrius Johnson, that's a big shadow to be in, right? That's the GOAT right there. So there's a reason why he's thought of in that way. Besides the Benavidez loss, there were a couple wicked submissions on that card. We had I believe it was Hermanson with the heel hook on Gaethje, and the Queen of Violence with the nastiest reverse knee bar, whatever you want to call it.
Oh
man, I've had knee surgery, and I literally shook when I seen that. I was like, oh no, that was nasty.
It was a tough one. You know, anytime you see a very hard to pull off submission that involves a lot of pressure, it's tough. It's tough to swallow. I mean, you watch it and you go like, it's kind of like, I don't want to get too graphic, but it's kind of like when another guy sees another guy get a shot in the nuts, right? Yeah. And you're like, oh, and no matter if you're male or female, we all have legs. We all have the same sort of limbs, right? For the most part. When you see one get cranked like that, and you can see the agony on the person's face, and you can also, any regular person can look at it and go, she's not getting out of that. Like, there's nowhere to go. It's so unfortunate. And then you got to factor in the fact that you have to get out of that position by losing the fight. So in order to prevent any further injury, you have to be like, okay, I have to succumb to this. And it's just such a defeating thing. But I mean, the level of skill it takes to pull that off, remarkable. And it's moments like that I think a lot of real hardcore MMA fans, you wait to see stuff like that. You wait to see somebody pull off a submission like that. And it was amazing to see. I remember, I was watching it at home, and then all of a sudden when I saw it happening, I was like, no. And then you're like, whoa, so it was a great moment for the hardcores for sure.
Yeah, it was it definitely got people's eyes popped out. And the other submission we had was the Joker with the very quick heel hook on Gaethje and or on Gastelum, not Gaethje. Yep. Sorry, my apologies. I'm getting my G's mixed up. But before I get you to break down that heel hook, we have obviously the winner Hermanson from that fight. He had a prediction after the fight that the winner of tomorrow's pay-per-view would go on to fight him, and then I have the name here. If you'll allow me to just look up look up my notes and have Cannonier fighting for the belt before either of them get to it. So the thought is that the winner of tomorrow's match will get a belt or a shot at the belt, but that's not how Hermanson is envisioning it. Is my long way around it. So how do you see it all happening?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So first of all, Hermanson, his knee bar attack was on a different level of how intelligent it was, because Kelvin Gastelum is coming off of a knee surgery. So there's a likelihood that Kelvin Gastelum may have, maybe not that so much that he wasn't working his legs all the time, but it mentally, it would have been something that he would have maybe overreacted to. I mean, Kelvin Gastelum's such an experienced boxer and is great with strikes that even if you clipped him with a jab, he's not going to overreact, but he might be a little more sensitive to coming off of his first knee surgery. And maybe he wasn't, your brain starts to scramble. You don't think methodically. You don't think, you don't go through those normal reactions to things and those normal, the things that you train for. So I think that it was genius of Hermanson to go for something that A, wasn't expected, and B, I mean, Gastelum looked like he was in phenomenal shape too. So to take a scary guy like that and to see that kind of heel hook being pulled up, I mean, it was remarkable. And, I feel bad for Gastelum, who came off the Darren Till decision. It's kind of on a bit of a skid right now and looked to be in phenomenal shape, which has always been a knock on him in the past. As far as the middleweight picture, it's a mess. But what I did like that Hermanson did, which I thought was genius, was he said that he's going to fight Paulo Costa next. So this was genius because Paulo Costa is going to challenge Israel Adesanya for the middleweight title. Whoever wins that fight, Hermanson said he could say, I want the winner of that fight, or I want the winner of the Till Whittaker fight. He could say that stuff, but he went and said, I'm going to fight Paulo Costa. So at two different times, twice in the same sentence, he said, A, Paulo Costa is going to beat Israel Adesanya, and I'm going to fight for the belt. But if Adesanya wins, he still gets to fight the guy that just fought the champion. Now, if Till or Whittaker win tomorrow night, they're going to call it the champ. But Hermanson called out the challenger and thus leapfrogging the other two as far as call-outs go. And Paulo Costa is a very reactive guy, so he'll be like, bring it on. So a guy with a W might be challenging a guy with an L, and or if the guy that loses to Adesanya, if he wins, he's the first guy to call him out. So he's the first challenge at the table, and he's like, screw the Till Whittaker thing. I'm going to leapfrog the other two guys who are likely probably better contenders at it. But I thought it was a genius call out. I thought, what a great way to leapfrog potentially the two guys in front of you, regardless of who wins the middleweight title fight in September.
Yeah, everyone, it seems to be forgetting about Cannonier, though. He's had 3 straight knockout victories.
Yeah.
And just because he doesn't have any flash, any sizzle,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, on the mic, I'll say he's not a heel, or he's not someone that has a lot of personality. People think that they can jump over him. Why is he not do his title shot? I mean, knockouts sell pay-per-views, and if this guy's going to basically guarantee a finish, then he should be getting his title shot.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think he's put in the work and he's proved himself. One of the epidemics of MMA, especially MMA media, is we have recency bias. The last thing that happened is the thing that we love the most, and we've seen that a lot with this recent pandemic, where you have fighters that are turning around so quickly between wins. And they're stacking up. Gilbert Burns was a guy that's won 3 times since March and basically got a title fight. And you're seeing these people have repeat great performances, and it's keeping their name out there. And poor Jared Cannonier, up and coming knockout artist, feared by pretty much everybody. And then, he has to hit pause, and then the pandemic hits, and then all this other stuff starts spiraling, and then you have the Jorge Masvidal stepping in last minute, and you've got Tilvers, and everything is just, and you're forgotten, you're lost in the shuffle. And sadly, that's where Jared Cannonier is. You've got someone, Jack Hermanson, the Joker, and Kelvin Gastelum just fought. Now you got Till and Whittaker, who are about to fight, and they just announced Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya for the title. So there's 6 contending middleweights that have fought without Jared Cannonier being part of any of them. And I think that him staying not relevant as far as talent goes, but just relevant to the fans and the demand, that's fallen behind a little bit. But in a perfect world, I'd like to see, we're going to see this fight tomorrow night, which is going to be amazing. We have the title fight. I think that in the absence of another fight for Hermanson, he should just fight Cannonier.
that would be quite an interesting matchup because he has both ground and standing game. The Joker does. So I don't know much. Like I said, I don't know much about the depth about the rankings middleweight, but it sounds like it's quite the crowded division, and I can understand how a guy who doesn't have very much personality can get lost behind all of those guys, all of those names, people who are household names, people who I mean, not that they're as renowned as the GSPs of the world, but people who get pay-per-view buys, right? And as much as this isn't a pay-per-view, it also sells ads, and eyes on ads makes money for you as well. So I can understand it, but it doesn't mean that it's fair.
Right. And you know what? Again, like it seems to be that the best fighters used to fight the best fighters once upon a time. And sometimes, not always, it just ends up that you have, we live in a social media driven, analytics driven, popularity driven sport now, especially since the purchase of the UFC by WME, which is an entertainment corporation. I think really solidified that there will be a little more of the entertainment value put into it, and skill versus skill, while still very much important, is considered maybe a little bit less than the entertainment factor. And if you look at Darren Till's social media and you look at Robert Whittaker's overall appeal internationally, I mean, those two, it's a match made in heaven. We're going to talk about this card a little bit more in a second, but like, it's an incredible way to end Fight Island. And when you factor in that sometimes a squeaky wheel does get the grease, we end up, even you and I end up talking about the people who are the most vocal or who have unbelievably stunning stamp finishes on. Now, Jared Cannonier has those incredible finishes. His highlight reel is great, but he's kind of that silent killer. And I think that a little bit more action, getting in front of the media. His management should be getting him more opportunities. They should fly him out to Fight Island, have him, at least around or something, doing media obligations. And, but yeah, I think if he gets a little more louder, it'll be hard to ignore his talent, combined with a little bit more personality, just like George Masvidal.
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's the classic people's champ versus the company champ, right? The better fighter versus the guy who can talk. And unless you can develop one of those two things, be the top fighter or the top talker, then you're not going to be on the bill.
And it carries over in other things. Look at, like, you and I are both wrestling guys, right? The Rock or anyone else, Stone Cold Steve Austin back in the day, I'm going a bit old school here, but if you didn't have mic skills, you didn't become that superstar. There was incredible wrestlers that never made it, right? Remember the Rockers, Marty Jannetty, Shawn Michaels? Like, they were the best tag team, like, out there. Super flashy, super popular, skill level through the roof.
Really dating yourself, right?
I am really dating myself. But Shawn Michaels had the personality and then became a superstar. And if you even in modern day now, like Becky Lynch might be, she's the man. And she might be the most talented person, female wrestler we've seen in a long time, but she also has the personality, right? And it goes a long way. If you have a lot of personality and no real flashy skill, that also doesn't equate. But Jared Cannonier just missing that last pillar to make him a real star, a real threat, a real star.
He needs a moment, and Becky Lynch's moment was having her nose broken by Nia Jax, standing in the crowd with blood all over her face. That's where her character, the man, was born.
Right.
And we're just waiting for Cannonier's moment where his character is born, where he's fought tough
guys. But I think you just nailed it. I think you nailed it right on the head there. He needs to have his one.
He's beat Hermanson, right? He's beat Hermanson, he's beat Branch, and he's beat Anderson Silva, all by knockout. So he's knocked out some guys. Oh, did I lose you?
I'll go Darren Till, and then
stop for a second. You want to start again? I lost you there for a second.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
I had said that he knocked out Anderson Silva, he knocked out Hermanson, and he knocked out David Branch.
Yeah, and all tough guys. And I was almost going to call it the Jorge Masvidal effect. I only say this: Jorge Masvidal beat a ton of good guys, had great finishes, but he needed something that was, again, to put him over. Like Jared Cannonier lost some decisions when he was at 205. He's also, let's not forget, Jared Cannonier used to be a heavyweight. Then he came down to 205, had a little bit of success, but then when he ran into like the Glover Teixeiras and the Jan Blachowicz and he lost to Dominic Reyes, he just seemed again somehow coming down in weight was the smaller guy. Once he got to 85, I mean, TKO's David Branch, punches, the leg kick thing with Anderson Silva, and then he KO'd Jack Hermanson. He didn't even beat him. He beat him, I think, in the second round, KO'd him, and that was when they were in Denmark. But yeah, I mean, Jared Cannonier's got it. I think activity and a few more sound bites for him, and you're looking at a guy who might just shoot through the rankings with a few small pieces.
Talking about names, talking about people who can be on the marquee. A couple of older names on the marquee that we're not used to seeing. I couldn't believe that they're actually still fighting. But we have Mauricio Shogun Rua versus a Little Nog matchup here on the main card. And how did this one end up here? This is like an old man, grumpier old men fighting. You know, like the movie Grumpier Old Men.
It really kind of is. You know, two legends. It's great to see them. Little Nog has come out and said it's his last fight. His two favorite fights have been with Shogun Rua, and they fought in Pride. They fought in the UFC before. They end up just being kind of slobber knocking great fights, and it is his last fight. He's been riddled with injuries his whole career, and Shogun is looking for exciting fights. I think he's looking for people to stand with him. So he seems to be avoiding
in his last 6.
Yeah, I mean,
like what?
I think it's one of those. It could also be a contract fight, one of those, fighting out your contract kind of thing. Because Verdum's in a way is in a similar spot, but I mean, Shogun's got nothing else to prove. I think that it becomes almost like how BJ Penn is. He still wants to fight because he can. He makes great money doing it. He's a household name, so they want to make sure that he is still, is decent to look at. He kind of has good composure. He's respectful. He's also brutally violent when he wants to. But he's just been so back and forth lately. I mean, to be honest, he fights top competition. I mean, he doesn't fight below the fifth seed, right? But with the top tiered guys, he is getting work. Now he just had a draw against Paul Craig. He's on the card too. That's kind of interesting to see because Paul Craig's made some strides after, but you're right. Like, 1-1, I guess, in his last few fights, but he's on a bit of a streak.
4
right. Yes. 4 fights. Yeah.
4-1.
But I think before that he was on a bit. Like, he beat Little Nog the last time he saw them.
So,
and then he beat Corey Anderson, and then he beat Gian Vellante, and then it's been on a bit of a skid. So it's just, I think he's at the end of his career. And while you're not going to get the Shogun who fought Lyoto Machida or who
I was just going to bring Lyoto Machida.
Yeah,
up.
You're not going to see that.
That's what brought me into the UFC. The series of fights with Lyoto Machida, and that's what I remember Shogun from. And I mean, Machida coming in the full gi, right?
Mm-hmm.
The full garb, and you don't get that anymore because of people were pulling on the shoulders and whatnot. But I guess it brings good memories back, but you just hope no one gets hurt, right? You don't want
exactly. I mean, Shogun, who is the toughest guy, there's still YouTube clips of him fighting in people's like living rooms. Like, the guy's an absolute savage. I mean, he's got 2 wins over. He knocked out Alistair Overeem twice. He's had crazy fights with Dan Henderson. He knocked out Chuck Liddell. He really beat Lyoto Machida twice. He's beaten the who's who. He's got nothing else to prove. I'm excited just to see him as a human being in there. I hope he looks great. I hope that he has a great performance. I'd love to see both guys hang it up after this because, I feel like a lot of their legacy and a lot of their importance is still very much intact. And I hate seeing people fight past their prime. I think Shogun still makes, almost 150,000 a fight. So I can see why there's some incentive there, but, it's great. Fight Island's historic. These are 2 legends. I hope they have a great competitive fight, or one of them has a highlight reel finish, hopefully, and then they can both call it a day because they've definitely earned their place in the history of MMA.
Yeah, I think maybe one of them ends up on someone's Mount Rushmore of UFC fighters, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that one pans out. You got another comeback, the third fight that I wanted to get to, and I know you got a couple topics that you want to talk about as well.
Man,
but we got a big one here. Alex Gustafsson is making a comeback, and he's making a comeback in a big way to the heavyweight division. Some say this is the UFC serving him up an easier opponent, and after his last fight, you can kind of like Verdum didn't look the best in his last bout, so you can kind of understand that. But Gustafsson looks very terrifying, I guess is the point.
It is. I'm freaked out. Like, to be honest, I love Alexander Gustafsson. We've talked about him before. A lot of people think he beat Joe. I mean, on his best day, Gus is one of the best. What I found was crazy about this, when you and I said we're gonna get on here, I like to do as much research as I could. I didn't realize this. So Alexander Gustafsson weighed in today at 240 pounds and looked thick, like not fat. Looked like he was in tremendous thick shape. So I went to the tail of the tape. Alexander Gustafsson will now be 1 inch taller than Fabricio Verdum. He'll be 9 pounds heavier. He has a 3-inch reach advantage and a 2-inch leg reach advantage. So you take away all the physical attributes away from the fight before they even started. And this is a guy coming up in weight. Longer arms, longer legs, taller, heavier. Like I said last time we spoke, this is going to be Fabricio Verdum's like sweet kiss goodbye to the UFC. He says he's not going to come back to the UFC because they've been back and forth with how he's been treated. I think that once this was Fabricio Verdum's last fight, I thought it was going to be they were just giving him Gustafsson almost like to punish him. But apparently Fabricio Verdum wanted this fight because of a sparring session gone wrong 6 years ago. So he's trying to right a wrong against a guy who is likely fighting at the same weight that he walks around in, who was quicker, lighter, faster, and recently has never really had his chin tested the way that Verdum has. And Verdum has looked like garbage in his last 2 fights.
So I read about that sparring match, and apparently it is part of Gustafsson's confidence headed in is that he thinks he has Verdum's number after that sparring match. So he has been vocal about it. I can understand why Fabricio would be a little bit upset about it and want to get even with him. I subscribe to The Athletic, so I have read some amazing articles. I don't know if you subscribe as well, but I have a quote here from Shaheen Al-Shadi's article or interview, I guess, with Gus. And it's crazy. So first things first, you said Gus, he weighed in at 240. His walking around weight is normally 238. That's from Gustafsson himself. And he was 238 when he was competing at light heavyweight. So he was cutting 30 or 40, almost 40 pounds to fight every single fight.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight.
So that is a crap ton of weight. So he said about training camp, he's like, it's continuous, the grind, it never stops. Basically, you have different types of grinds. You have training camp, you have to perform every day, 3 sessions a day. Then you have the off-season grind. It's always a grind. There are no days off. And when it comes to that, to the fight that he lost, against Anthony Smith in his hometown, he was a sore loser. He said he was a bad loser, and that's why his feelings got the best of him, and he walked away from the fight. He has affirmed that he is eating healthier now. He is his body has much more energy now, and he doesn't have any soreness or any pain because he's not starving himself. He also went on to say how he is not really he complained about the weight cut to light heavyweight, but he said it's hard for everybody in any weight cut or for any weight cut in any weight class because they can't eat. So this is completely different. We're getting a completely different mauler here, and a guy who's been able to just eat to his heart's content, make sure his body's healthy, and then he's going to go in there a beast. He's going to go in there healthier than he's ever been, and maybe do things that he's never been able to do before.
You know what? I agree with you. And I think that at the time that Alexander Gustafsson came into the UFC, you were looking at the top echelon of most people fighting at the maximum of people cutting down to make 265. So when Alexander Gustafsson made his debut, Brock Lesnar, Shane Carwin, Alistair Overeem, those people were still Roy Nelson. He could be thinner, I guess, but he's my champion. But those guys were fighting around the 255 to 265 marker. Brock Lesnar apparently cuts almost 20 pounds to get to 265. And I mean, that's a big boy. I can understand why he maybe didn't want to fight the heaviest of heavyweights at the time. Or maybe he was just younger and his body has just naturally grown up into the state now. When you think about it, him being 240 and walking at 238 is closer to the heavyweight limit than it is to the limit of 205. So this makes all the sense in the world. And if what we're led to believe is that we've only been seeing an Alexander Gustafsson who's been dehydrated and has hated every minute of training camp, I cannot wait to see what this is going to be like for a guy that's going to be peak. He's had almost a year off, resting your body, letting your not cutting. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see if his fluidity and his speed translates to heavyweight. But I'll tell you, John Lodge, if it does, it is frightening. It is frightening if Alexander Gustafsson can move the way he did at 205 at heavyweight, because you're looking at a Tyson Fury, but not as tall type movement, in, out, back and forth, great hands, good. I mean, just you might see him at his absolute best, and he might be the next heavyweight star, honestly.
Yeah, and people forget that when he was at 205, we're not talking about a guy who wasn't a contender at 205. We're talking about a guy who was behind two of the greatest of all time, behind Daniel Cormier and behind John Jones,
who both said that he gave them their hardest fight, right?
Yeah.
Daniel Cormier said it was his tough. They don't even say that about each other. John Jones doesn't say Daniel Cormier is the toughest. John Jones says Gus is the toughest. And Daniel doesn't say that John Jones is the toughest. Daniel says Alexander Gustafsson is the toughest.
Yeah, and that's something to be said, because Gus also went on to say that watching what Cormier has done in the heavyweight division, being a lighter heavyweight, being able to move around and control the match in the ways that he has, made him want to make his comeback to the heavyweight division. So, you'd think that being behind Cormier your whole career, you wouldn't want to jump into that again. I mean, I get that we know that Cormier's done after this, but there's always a chance to call him out for one more fight. Who knows? But yeah, you'd think that, I guess the point I was making, you think that Gus wouldn't want to jump into the same division as Cormier, but he's making the move, and it looks like it's the right one for him to make.
I agree. And I think that if you take motivation from what someone like Daniel Cormier could do, and you know how well you tested up against him, I think that's a good sign. So I've never made the walk in my life, the walk to the ring. I've never gone into a fight camp. I've never cut weight. I haven't done any of these things. I can only go on what the testimonials of other fighters and what they've done. And from what I understand, it's a really hard thing to do. And that's what makes the loss even tougher. When I think of Alexander Gustafsson, and the worst loss of his career at the time was him getting, after a ref stoppage, losing to Anthony Johnson in Stockholm at one of the first major events in the arena. And the entire thing is hinged on promoting your hometown guy, and he loses. Luckily, in a smaller setting, he avenged that. But then again, he goes back into the big arena with Anthony Smith, and then loses again. And the entire buildup for that Anthony Smith fight in Stockholm at the same arena that he lost to Anthony Johnson at the whole lead up is how he will, hopefully the same result doesn't happen. You're thinking, I can't lose again. I can't lose in front of my family. I can't lose in front of my fans. Can't lose in front of my hometown. He's the poster boy of MMA and UFC in Sweden. He's the guy. And every time you lose at home, I forget who said it. I think it was George St. Pierre. It was like, when you lose at home, it's like losing 10 times somewhere else. Maybe it wasn't GSP. Somebody had said that. And I can only imagine that after his second of 3 tries to headline a 5-round main event in the biggest city in his home country, that it got the best of him. And I love that he's not fighting in Sweden. I think it takes the entire pressure off him. No pressure for the weight cut. And no pressure to bring it all home in the main event. This is kind of a co-main part 2 in a way. I know it's not the official.
Actually,
co-main.
I think the co-main is Little Nog. So,
and it's 3 rounds. 3 rounds at your natural weight, away from your hometown with no pressure. I'm telling you, man, I think this is gonna. I think we're all gonna be talking about Alexander Gustafsson come Sunday morning.
So I guess we're both on the same page here. We're both picking
Mhm.
Gus to take this one, and I mean, I guess you can call us a little bit of homers when it comes to that. I've
Oh
been a
yeah,
fan of him for a
yeah,
while now, and always rooted for him when he went for that strap. So hopefully he can get the heavyweight strap after both Stipe and DC walk away, and then maybe, just maybe, if he can get that strap, he calls out DC and DC makes a comeback after a year, because there's something I read that the first retirement is just full of crap
yeah,
when you're a fighter, because once you walk away and you walk away for a year or so or 2 years, that bug starts to eat at you because you know you still got more in you. So, and everyone knows DC's got more in him. So
yeah.
we'll see what happens.
I got one for you, Lodge. Check this out. Imagine this: Gustafsson goes out there tomorrow night and TKOs Fabricio Verdum. Just like it's not even competitive. Just finishes him in the first round, right? And then gets on the mic and just says like, "I really want to." He was nice, so he's a nice guy. He's not going to say anything too crass, right? And he just says, "I want to test myself against the best," and he wants to fight Francis Ngannou. And then you got Gustafsson versus Ngannou, and then I'm a dead. I'm a dead man walking, because that would be, depending on how he looks tomorrow. But if he gets through Verdum relatively easily, I mean, or Gustafsson versus Derek Lewis, like give a guy, like just let it be a slugfest. There isn't a lot of strong wrestlers. I don't want to see Curtis Blades versus Gustafsson, because we all know what he's going to do. But
Yeah, he's going to lay on
imagine,
top of him.
and just imagine Gustafsson versus anybody with hands. Oh man, that's pretty. That's a whole. I'm getting shivers, John.
Anything he could do in the heavyweight division and to elevate the heavyweight division to the level it's going to need to stay at. You know,
Yeah.
Stipe and DC are doing it right now, but they're both walking away. So you need a new guy. Francis is the knockout guy, but you need someone who can be a challenger, someone who can help, and two people to carry the division, right?
Right.
So
Exactly right.
hopefully Gustafsson can be that for the heavyweight division when it loses its two legends.
And while we're on the topic of heavyweights, short notice turnaround. Our Canadian boy Tanner Bozer
Oh yeah,
coming
the
back in.
bulldozer.
He's starting in the last minute replacement. I think he took it on 6 days notice. Somebody tested positive, or their team tested positive, so they pulled off one of the heavyweights. Tanner Bozer, right, comes in and goes, Canadian boy, first round knockout, then 3 cards ago, comes in, saves the day, opening up the card, first fight on the early prelims. I just saw that and I read a little story about it. I went, oh my god, a guy we were talking about who's on the main card of one of the UFC Apex cards, Canadian boy, comes in last minute. They don't even have his picture on the website yet.
Yeah, he's got that sick mullet, right? So
Yeah, his picture isn't even up yet.
That's interesting. I didn't know that Bozer was going to be fighting. I'm
Neither did
excited to see. I'm excited to see him there. Hopefully that's not a Wikipedia thing, because Ariel Helwani has been getting
Oh my god,
busted
so
with.
funny, so funny. No,
I,
it's a real fight. It's actually happening, and it's on the UFC website, but they just haven't changed the picture over. So it says Tanner Boser, then the former opponent. They haven't even changed the graphic yet. Pretty funny.
It'll be good. Hopefully he can get another knockout and he can elevate himself in the heavyweight division. And maybe we
Big
got a
time.
Canadian boy
Yeah.
who's making himself known, because the mullet speaks for itself. You don't even need to say anything on the mic, right?
Absolutely. To get a knockout with that hair flying around, there's no better highlight.
So anything else on the card that you want to talk about? Anything else that stands out
Yeah, really
before we
quickly.
get out of here?
This is incredible. So the previous record, I'm not even going to bring up. I'm just going to get right into it. So, Kamzat Kaimev. I'm bad with Middle Eastern. Oh no, sorry, like European names. But yeah, Kazmat Kaimev is taking a fight in a weight class above him. It'll be the 10th day after his last fight. So he fought on that Wednesday card the UFC had, and then there was a fight night on the Saturday, and now he's coming in the Saturday after. So he got a first round stoppage of his opponent at 170, and it was his UFC debut. All this stuff is crazy. So he came out of there virtually. It was complete wash. He didn't barely absorb a strike. Turned around on Dana White and said, "I want to fight again. I want to fight again now." Looked so good in this fight. Dana White was like, "Yeah, let's keep this guy fighting," thinking he was going to fight in September or something. They couldn't find him an opponent. And then Rice McKee, who's making his UFC debut this time around, was like, I'm your Huckleberry. Like, I'm the guy. I'll fight him. Like, I'm not afraid of anybody. So Rice McKee, right, making his UFC debut, is fighting Kamat or Kamzat. I think it's Kamat Kayev or Kaimev is fighting him on he's making his debut. Kaimev is fighting for the second time in 10 days, and it will be a UFC record. It was previously held by I forgot the name now. Who did it in 15 days, and that was crazy. Cowboys' earliest turnaround was 21 days. So 10 days is crazy. I'm really glad it's not back at 170. It's more of a natural walk around weight. I think they both walk around 190. They both made weight today, and if he pulls this off, it'll be the quickest 2 wins in UFC history, and will also be the quickest 2 fights back to back in UFC history. Barely got sanctioned.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, if he had absorbed any sort of damage from his previous.
Oh yeah, it would be a no-go. They would have been absolute squash.
Yeah, it would have been a medical, or he would have been medically exempt, right? Probably to fight so soon. So, I was just gonna say, hopefully, he wasn't hiding any injuries and he doesn't get hurt. But
No.
if he looks as good as he did on, I didn't catch the Wednesday show, so I didn't catch his fight. But if he can finish it in the first round, then he's in for another payday. These guys, they don't make a lot of money, right? So that's got to be a big thing if you're able to double up your payday in 2 weeks. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so he came out of there with basically a second round submission, and John Phillips, the guy we fought, right? Just to show you how crazy, how good this guy is, and how unclose the fight was. So it's 2 rounds, right? So you're looking at, he won with a minute 12 seconds into the second round. So let's call it a round and a minute. John Phillips' opponent managed to get 2 of 3 strikes. So he threw a total of 3, right? One of them was a significant strike, attempted no takedowns, attempted no submissions, right? Kamat Kaimaev landed 124 of 140 total strikes, 43 of them out of 52 being significant, landed 2 takedowns, and got the submission that he wanted. It was that not competitive. I've never seen it happen before. It was like, I've barely seen a debut like this. He could have finished the guy in the first 2 minutes and then looked like he was having fun in there. It was borderline like a psychotic behavior. The guy's 26 years old. He's about to have 2 fights in 10 days. I think if he comes out of this with 2 W's, it's going to be a guy to watch. He already should be, but it's really exciting, and nothing like making history in your second fight.
Well, he's got the right guy's eyes on him, right? So if you've got Dana White, his attention on you, then for the right reasons anyway. You don't you don't want Dana White's attention on you for the wrong reasons. But Ariel Helwani knows that best.
We haven't even talked about the headliner. Like, we've barely done anything with Tillin Whittaker.
Well, no, we did. We started with Tillin Whittaker. I mean, I guess we didn't talk too much about it and didn't pick a winner out of it. Whittaker, I believe, was the guy you said a couple episodes back. He had donated bone marrow or
to
something
his daughter.
To his daughter, and so will this be his first fight back since doing that?
Yeah, well, the surgery, I guess, was he hasn't fought since he lost the title, so he took some time, helped his daughter out. Was talking about fighting, I think, Gastelum a few months after his loss to Adesanya when he lost the title, and then he scratched that. I think the fight was announced and then it got scratched, and then no one knew why, and only Dana White kind of knew why, and so you can ask him, and then he eventually said it. I mean, that's going back. I mean, Adesanya's fought once since then. I think it's over a year now. So he's taking a year off. He's got 3 kids. He's got a bunch of stuff going on. He seems like he's in a good place, and looks like he put on a little bit of size. So it'll be his first time back. Will the jitters be there? I don't know. But I mean, the matchup, just like, I mean, watch for, you ever wanted to see a 0 takedown main event? These guys are pretty strikers who love to throw, and I'm excited for it. But I love Robert Whittaker, man. He's one of the nicest people in the sport. He's an incredibly vicious fighter, and it's just good to have him back in the mix.
Yeah, he actually had said that he was burnt out, and he's one of the only fighters to ever admit to being burnt out from fighting. And you could imagine, like I had said in the Gustafsson quote, the grind of all of it, of being you even said of being the main guy on the card, being the guy going to your hometown, responsible for selling out the arena, and you're supposed to win and you lose both times. It's just it's a lot on a single fighter. It's not like you're on a team. Yes, you have a team of coaches, but it's still on your name. It's almost it's like it's like a golfer or a tennis player, right? It's different than being on a team sport. And even golf and tennis, we're talking about things that aren't anywhere near as wide scope as mixed martial arts now, because it's becoming, we've talked about that before, it's also becoming the next big sport, the next big North American sport. And it's beyond North American, because we're talking about Abu Dhabi, we're talking about Fight Island, and this is the only way we could get the world's fighters to fight because they couldn't come into America. So having all that pressure on you, and Whittaker had admitted it was too much. So he had to walk away. He walked away for a year, and he helped his daughter, which is a great story.
Oh, incredible!
If he has said that his fire is relit, so if he can come back and he can be competitive, then there's. I mean, you could say there's no limit, but I mean, he's already lost in the title fight, right? So what does he have to do to get back to the strap?
And this is a guy. I mean, Robert Whittaker fought Jacare, and then fought Yoel Romero, went to the distance twice with like the most vicious guy in the division, like, and then had to fight Adesanya with 55,000 people. I mean, the guy deserved a break, but he's almost too tough for his own good. I think a clear-cut win over. I think the winner of this fight gets the next title shot, anyways. I kind of think that's the way it's going to go, unless you're in a position where you just have a fight that isn't really engaging. That isn't, that both fighters don't seem too into it. You don't see that hunger, that fire, nothing. If it doesn't have to be a war, but if it's a good, either guy needs a good performance or a great finish, and then they're basically they write their own check for the title shot. I think Whittaker to get it done. God, it's so hard because Whittaker's so diverse, and he's got such an interesting, loves to play different angles, very well-rounded, good takedown defense. To me, there's such a question mark around Darren Till, because he's so good, he's so powerful, but just like we were talking about, Gustafsson fought at 170 and was kind of hit or miss with the odd performance, and everyone was saying the guy cuts like close to 35 or 40 pounds. It takes him 2 weeks to get into his weight cut, 3 weeks to get for him to cut weight. So, and that's not necessarily healthy, nor is it good for him. I've heard his walk around weight is something like 197, when he's in camp. So who knows? I think that when he fought Gastelum and beat him at middleweight, 185, he had all those visa issues. And I think that he basically was a bloated welterweight who got a close decision. I think that Darren Till, this might be his coming out party. Unfortunately, it's going to be against Robert Whittaker, who is no walk in the park. But I think we're looking at a war. And I think that it's not so much what Robert Whittaker can do to get back to a title. I think that if it's what Robert Whittaker has to prove to himself and what he wants to do with the rest of his career, because every champion talks about it. It's easy to win the title. It's hard to stay champion. And, I think with a year off, he's going to have a good mindset, strong body coming into it, but he's got Darren Till, and Darren Till is the gorilla.
So where's the smart money? If you're putting a bet down, if you're making a card right now, and you're picking the three fights, you're picking Gus and the Gustafsson fight, the Hua fight, and the main event.
Thank you for giving me a way out of that. I thought you were gonna make me put smart money on the Till and Whittaker fight by itself. I still do a prediction, but I don't know. Okay. Gustafsson absolutely works for Doom. No question about it. I'd be shocked if it didn't end that way. Hua versus Little Nog. I got such a Shogun bias. He's a little bit younger. He hasn't been knocked out as many times as Nogueira. And also Little Nog, I don't know if he's ever come into a fight healthy in ever. I don't know. I think he's always riddled with injuries. I got a bit of Shogun bias, but I think he's a better all around athlete. And if he applies his kicks to his game effectively, I think that he could, if he comes in there like with tactics and a game plan, I think he can pretty easily. I think he's got Nog's number. Whittaker and Till, Jesus, this is such a close fight. I love Darren Till. I love his personality. I think Whittaker is the more diverse striker and has more experience with 5-round fights. I can't. I don't know. I think the smart money might be that it goes the distance. I don't know if I can give you a winner on that one. I have two clear winners on the other ones, but I can see Darren Till winning. I can also see Robert Whittaker winning as well. You know what? That's too much of a cop out. I'm gonna go Darren Till. I think 2 years younger, finally seeing him at his proper weight. I think he comes in energized. He's been the more active fighter. So I'll take Darren Till by 5-round decision.
So it will be a 5-round fight. I guess I'm not used to that. All main events are 5 rounds now, right? I'm so used to it just being the 2 rounds being championship rounds, but that's
got to get that marketing money, that advertising money's got to come in, baby. 5 rounds.
Well, 5 rounds. Now it would almost be a bigger payday to say it's going to go the distance, right? Because it's an easier call to say the distance when it's 3 rounds. But if you're talking about 5 rounds of war between these two guys, that's going to be interesting to see, especially if it's Till who comes out on top, right? So
I think anytime you have two people who are specialized, while they're both well-rounded, when they both specialize in one centralized area, I think you don't see a lot of gaps. And I think when you see fighters who have, the great striking, but their grappling's okay, you'll just see someone get out grappled. And I think that these guys line up so well striking, and they both are good at setting. They're not heavy-handed brawlers. They're very technical strikers. I think that it's southpaw versus orthodox. If there was 2 southpaws, it might be even a little bit boring in a way because of the distance management. But I think that it's southpaw versus orthodox. And I think you're just going to see 2 people trying to outthink and outwork themselves on the feet. Both guys also are really big believers in high-paced, a lot of movements, a lot of feints, a lot of kicks here, looking for openings, creating openings. So I think it'll be one of those. It might not be an absolute slugfest, but it will have a lot of really high-level striking and a lot of activity as well. So I guess my other prediction could be that it won't be boring, but you may not see guys go for the kill unless somebody gets caught. And I would love to see, a long fight with these guys, because anyone who's striking or striking could learn a lot from either one of those guys, and 2 very different styles. But I think 5 rounds. I think Till comes out on top, younger, faster, not a long layoff.
Well, you heard it here first. That's Gustafsson, Hua, and Till. Go make your card now, and hopefully you don't come back at us. We don't offer any refunds on our picks here. So that's all we've got for you this week on the Sports Lodge UFC edition. Hopefully when we come back, we're talking about a successful entry into the heavyweight division by Alexander Gustafsson.
Absolutely. Listen, John, thank you as always, dude. I love setting this up with you. I know friends of mine that watch the clips think it's awesome, and keep doing this, dude. And anytime you want me to talk with you, I'm happy to do it. Remember that if you are betting on my recommendations, I will not owe you any money if you lose.
No refunds.
I myself lose sometimes as well, although I win more than I do lose.
Yes, that's winning more than losing. That's, if you're not doing that with betting, maybe you should do something.
Yeah, and don't bet $3,000 just because I said Alexander Gustafsson's going to win. When I bet money, I bet like $10 at a time, $5 at a time. Make it fun, make it interesting. Don't bet your mortgage on it. Come on.
Yeah. Use your brains. We're in a pandemic. All right. That's all we got for this episode. We'll be back for the next fight card. Thanks for joining me again, Jordan.
Anytime, buddy. Go Kraken.
Yeah. The Seattle Kraken. What a joke.